Planet X-47 was supposed to be a routine survey. A human crew, small, curious, slightly overconfident, touched down to catalog minerals, record atmospherics, and scan for potential colonies. The terrain was alien, jagged mountains fused with metallic growths, strange bioluminescent fungi painting caves in muted neon. Nothing in the data suggested the planet harbored life capable of complex thought, much less the deadliest predators in known space. The relic was discovered in a cavern deep beneath a ridge. It hummed faintly, pulsing with an energy humans had never encountered. They took readings, photographed it, debated whether to excavate. Inexperience and hubris outweighed caution. One careless scan, one misaligned excavation charge, and the relic fractured. The energy pulse was immediate, a ripple across space that their instruments couldn't fully measure, but the Hive Lords could. Back on orbit, mining stations and research outposts that had been quietly operating near the planet were obliterated. Humans realized only after the fact, this was not a minor ecological incident. Something ancient, intelligent, and lethally territorial had been awakened. The crew scrambled. Communications were sent, evacuation plans drafted, but nothing could prepare them for what came next. The galaxy's deadliest predators had been roused, and their attention was now fixed entirely on the small, fragile humans who had trespassed. Every instinct screamed retreat, yet the humans had nowhere to hide. Supplies were limited. Ships were small. Weapons insufficient. What they did possess, however, was unpredictability, ingenuity, and audacity, human traits that, until now, even the Hive Lords had underestimated. The first strike alerts came in waves, silent but devastating. Orbital defenses failed. Surveillance drones disintegrated in seconds. The crew realized the enormity of their error. They had inadvertently started a war with the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. Panic flared, but humans do not yield easily. Each member quickly adapted, improvising with what little they had. Energy readings were cross-referenced, environmental hazards mapped, and every possible trap considered. The Hive Lords were relentless, but the humans were unpredictable. The tiny crew, armed with curiosity and courage, had just triggered a conflict that would test not only their skill, but the very ingenuity that defines humanity. By the end of the day, the planet itself became their ally. Caverns, jagged cliffs, and toxic fungi were incorporated into defense strategies. The humans were small, vulnerable, and yet, for the first time, they realized that their survival might hinge on what made them human: creativity, adaptability, and the audacity to challenge a force that should have been impossible to fight. They had begun a war. They did not yet understand the full scale, nor the cost, but one thing was certain: the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. The Hive Lords arrived with silent precision. Waves of bioorganic warships, massive, predatory, and eerily intelligent, swept through orbit. The humans observed from their meager platforms, noting patterns and rhythms in the attackers' movement. Direct confrontation was impossible. Any attempt at brute force would have resulted in immediate annihilation. Humans quickly realized their strength lay not in firepower, but in cunning, adaptability, and improvisation. They began setting traps using the terrain itself. Caverns were rigged with energy disruptors, cliffs turned into ambush points, and bioluminescent fungi were manipulated to mask their movements or lure predators into confined spaces. Every human decision was deliberate, every maneuver calculated to exploit hive instincts. Casualties were inevitable, yet each loss taught the crew more about alien behavior, feeding into their growing advantage. Communication patterns of the hive were studied, decoded, and used against them. Humans created misleading signals, fake supply routes, and decoy structures. The predators, used to predictable prey, were thrown off balance. Confusion spread through the hive ranks, while humans adapted in real time, learning, improvising, and exploiting every weakness revealed. As days passed, humans began to shift from pure defense to controlled engagements. Skirmishes were small but precise, designed to gather intelligence and test alien responses. Every ambush revealed more about the hive's capabilities and limitations. Humans survived by thinking in ways no predator had ever anticipated, turning their vulnerability into a tool and their limited resources into instruments of strategy. By the end of this phase, the humans were no longer merely defending, they were shaping the battlefield. Hive lords, frustrated and disoriented, began to understand that they had underestimated these small, seemingly fragile creatures. The humans' unpredictability, creativity, and sheer audacity had bought them time, knowledge, and the first glimmers of tactical control. The galaxy's deadliest predators had met their first true challenge, and humanity, still small and outnumbered, was proving that intellect, strategy, and adaptability could level even the most dangerous playing field. Every moment of chaos became an opportunity, and the humans, undaunted, continued to learn, survive, and outthink the seemingly unstoppable Hive Lords. Humans were no longer reacting, they were planning. Every engagement with the Hive Lords became a lesson in alien behavior, turning each skirmish into an opportunity for strategic advantage. The crew analyzed movement patterns, studied communication pulses, and catalogued responses to environmental manipulations. They realized that the Hive Lords relied on instinct and predictability. Humans, unpredictable and inventive, could exploit that. Ambushes were set with precision. Cliffs became choke points, energy fields disrupted alien coordination, and decoy structures funneled predators into traps. The crew combined technology with terrain, improvising weapons from salvaged materials and environmental hazards. Each tactic was a calculated risk, yet every risk expanded their understanding of the Hive Lord's strengths and weaknesses. Humans anticipated overconfidence. Hive Lords, believing themselves superior, repeatedly fell for misdirection. Supply pods were rigged to explode on approach, tunnels collapsed selectively, and bioluminescent trails were manipulated to create false pathways. Each success reinforced the humans' confidence, demonstrating that survival was possible even against overwhelming odds. Casualties mounted, but the crew adapted without hesitation. Failures became lessons, improvisation became instinct. The humans' ingenuity began to redefine the battlefield. What the Hive Lords perceived as chaos was, in fact, a meticulously orchestrated strategy, combining human creativity, audacity, and courage. By the end of this stage, humans were executing counterattacks that stunned the Hive Lords. Predators began retreating from traps, communication patterns faltered, and coordination broke down under constant, unexpected pressure. Humans were not just surviving, they were controlling the flow of battle. The galaxy's deadliest creatures had encountered a force they could not predict, and humanity, small yet cunning, was proving that intellect and strategy could challenge even the most formidable adversary. Every ambush, every manipulation, every clever diversion reinforced one undeniable truth. Humans were capable of outthinking the deadliest species in known space, and the war was no longer a simple matter of survival, it was becoming a contest of ingenuity, with humanity steadily gaining the upper hand. The Hive Lords were beginning to hesitate. Their initial confidence had eroded under relentless unpredictability. Humans had turned every terrain feature, every resource, and every instinct of the predators against them. The creatures that once struck fear into entire systems now found themselves reacting to a species they had assumed would be easy prey. Humans expanded control over key zones, repairing outposts and fortifying positions while integrating captured alien tech into defensive measures. Every action was deliberate, calculated to leverage both environment and enemy behavior. The crew worked with precision, each decision reinforcing their growing dominance. Communication with distant human colonies coordinated supply, reinforcements, and intelligence, creating a network the Hive Lords could not disrupt. The galaxy took notice. Observers from neutral and allied species recorded the humans' methods, amazed at how a small crew could challenge creatures considered unstoppable. Stories spread of humans outsmarting and surviving against the deadliest predators alive. Reputation grew, respect emerged, and the humans' ingenuity became the defining threat, not raw force. The Hive Lords, recognizing the humans' ingenuity and unpredictability, began retreating or recalibrating tactics. Every failure taught humans more, every trap honed their strategy. By the time the dust settled, humans had turned a near-certain disaster into a demonstration of strategic brilliance. The war had started with a single accident, yet humanity emerged as a species no one in the galaxy could dismiss. Survival had become mastery, creativity had become power, and intelligence had triumphed over raw strength. The Hive Lords were forced to respect a species that had turned vulnerability into advantage, chaos into strategy, and a reckless mistake into a legacy of audacious dominance. Humans did not just survive, they became an unignorable force, the galaxy's deadliest predators, learning, perhaps too late, that intelligence, adaptability, and courage were a weapon no beast could withstand.